Hi, and welcome to Untethered with Jen Liss, the podcast that's here to help you free yourself from the crap that's holding you back so you can claim the life you're meant to live. I'm your host, Jen, and today we're going to talk about how selfishness can help you find your happiness. Let's dive in. Hi, friends, it's Jen. Today on the podcast, we have Pascale Cook-Fernandes, and she is a coach who supports women to discover their true happiness from within. So we are very aligned in our mission. We are very aligned in our work in many ways. And Pascale is really into energetics. She's a Reiki master. She, long time ago, did massage. Today she coaches. She's had a varied journey and in many ways, like so similar. And in this episode, we really dive into energy and why it's so important in helping you to find clarity. We talk about embodiment. We talk about how to make decisions that are aligned for you, that are going to lead you further on your path of happiness. And as you noticed in the title, we talk about selfishness and why it's so important to truly know yourself in order to find your happiest, most beautiful, most magical life. Everyone, welcome to the podcast, Pascale. Hi, Pascale.
Hi, Jen. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to have you on the podcast, and we're going to dive into some fun stuff today. But first of all, I would just love to know, why is it that you are so focused on helping women to find clarity? Why is that something that is like so key and important to you just right off the top?
So key, so important, because I feel like as women, historically, we give ourselves over to other people, right? We belong to our parents and our family, and then our father, our mother, someone gives us away. And now we belong to someone else. And then we have our children and we are their mother. And we spend the majority of our lives belonging to other people. I have chills all over my body right now, just even saying this. And so many, it's so sad, but so many women go their whole lives and they don't even know who's inside. And it's finding the clarity of self, of coming into resonance with our true selves. That is so important because we spend so much time belonging to other people and things that are outside of ourselves.
I've never heard somebody describe it like that. And I also got goosebumps as you said it. It's truth. You were speaking so much truth. And this is such a challenge I found. I mean, you can go scroll back to this Instagram post from like a few years ago where I said, hello, I am Jen and I have no idea who I am, because there was this moment of realization, like, I have lived so outside through other people's perspective, never thought of it like this belonging. And it's so true. And that's a basic human need, belonging, right? Like, so, and we're giving it over. We're giving over that power to other people.
Yeah.
How did you realize this for yourself? Was this a realization or was this in work that you did that you came to this point?
This was a realization. And so I always say I live in the flow of the universe, and I just trust that the universe is going to bring me to the next place I'm supposed to be. And one of the big stories that I tell in my business is this time when, my husband and I were very happy. We had 3 babies in 4 years, and everything was amazing. I was a stay-at-home mom and he went to work and everything was great until it wasn't. And we were so busy being busy that we weren't paying attention. And then one day he comes to me and he says, I don't even think I'm in love with you anymore. Yeah. Like, Jen, it was like an out-of-body experience. And so when I was able to come back down into my body, he hates the story because he's like, it makes me look like an ass. And I'm like, no, it makes you look human. And it makes our experience very human, because people don't post about this stuff on social media, right? They just put their highlight reel. but behind closed doors, we're all going through it. And so we decided in that moment that two things really mattered: our kids and our marriage. And we decided to work like hell to try to save it. And so we did all the things. I called my life coach and I'm like, SOS, we're in crisis. We need a call. She took us the next day. And one of the things she said to me, which was a huge turning point, was, Pascale, you have to prepare yourself for what happens if this doesn't work out. What is your life going to look like on the other side of divorce? And I looked at her and that's what I was like, I didn't know. And I said, how can I know that? I don't even know who I am anymore. And that's where it started. That was my climb out. That was my realization that I don't know who I am. I've lost myself. I love my kids. I love my husband. I love my life, but I don't love myself because I don't know myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was in that moment that I had to make the decision, like, this is important. I have to know myself and learn to love myself. And so that's just kind of where it all started.
Wow. What a powerful story. So I'm assuming that if your husband if he doesn't like the story, that it did work out. Yeah.
It totally worked out. Totally worked out. And I mean, we're happier than we've ever been. And it's because we were able to shine the light on the ugly, right? We were able to shine the light on the things that we all keep hidden in the darkness and look at them and appreciate them for what they were teaching us. Because it's Abraham Hicks who says, you have to know what you don't want to know what you do want, right? And so we were able to look at all those things we didn't want anymore and really shine a light on what we do want. And that gave us quick focus to start working towards those things.
Oh, that's so beautiful. When I was a hairstylist, that was one of the best ways that I had to get people to what they really did want, even with their hair, was, well, what do you not want? And it's such a great way to bounce off to the other side and really understand what you do, because especially when you don't know yourself, like, that's one of the hardest questions that people have when I'm working through people with coaching. Like, we so often have no idea what the heck we actually want. We've never allowed ourselves the opportunity to ask that question. And it's genuinely scary.
It's so scary. And as women, we judge ourselves and are so self-critical over the fact that we feel like we're being selfish. If we allow ourselves the time to really take care of ourselves and get to know ourselves and be happy with ourselves, that feels very selfish. But I challenge that and say it's important to be selfish, but selfish with a capital S, right? We have to look at ourself with a capital S, and say, if I'm not taking care of myself, how can I show up in the way I want to show up for all the people that I love so much?
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Selfish with a capital S. Okay. If somebody's they're hearing this episode now and they're like, oh my gosh, this is me. I need this clarity. I actually don't know myself. Or maybe they are kind of along the journey a little bit. What would you say is that first step for them, or that next step with them? What can help them to be a little bit more selfish?
I love it. That's such a great question. My mind just shut off in like 6 different places. I'm going to bring it back quickly to say energy work. And I'll just explain that a little bit, but I'm a Reiki master. And do you know what Reiki is and what it's all about?
So much fun, because I very recently did what I called an Untethered Practices series on this podcast. And that's because I got Reiki for the first time. And I was like, more people need to try this. So jazzed to have you on the podcast talking about this. Thanks for bringing it up.
I actually listened to that episode. Now that you're saying it, I'm like, that's right. I was on my way on a road trip. Yes, it's such a beautiful experience. So for anybody who doesn't really understand what Reiki is, here's a quick explanation. We know that everything in the world is made up of energy, right? So, this pen is energy the same way that the wind is energy. And it just shows up as a pen because this energy vibrates differently than the wind vibrates. So woo woo has always said it, and science now proves it. I love that those two things overlap now, that everything's made of energy. So, Reiki is an energy healing practice. And if you can imagine that I have a big hole in the top of my head, and there is I don't know, just think of a rubber tube that goes down into that hole through the top of my head, and it's like a funnel. So, all the universal life force energy gets funneled down through the top of my head, through this tube that goes through my body, through my arms, and out through a hole in my hands. And that's how a Reiki practitioner redirects universal life force energy. It just funnels it through and redirects it. I'm redirecting it to you right now as we're talking. And so that's how Reiki healing works. When you go and have a Reiki session, which you can attest to, it's so relaxing, first of all. And when I have worked with clients giving Reiki sessions, I do hands-on Reiki. It's just a gentle laying on of hands. Some practitioners are hands-off and they hover just above the body. Both work fine because here's our physical body. We also have an energetic body, which is our aura that goes around us. And as a Reiki practitioner, you work down through the 7 major energy centers in the body. Energy work is so enlightening because you learn how energy affects your body. You learn how to ground your energy, protect your energy, redirect your energy. You can make your energy bigger. You can make your energy smaller. So one of the biggest things, I think, in the next step of the journey is learning about energy work, because it forces you to go inward and really feel into your body.
Firm believer in it too. As a breath worker, it's energy work as well. And once you felt it and once you've experienced it, you know it. Like there, it's
Right.
like you can't unknow, you can't unfeel.
You can't unfeel.
It's amazing that we go through our lives and don't understand it. Yeah, go ahead.
Right, right. Remind me, when you had your session, did you see colors? Did you see pictures?
I see colors more often than I see pictures. Yes,
Okay.
lots of colors.
Yeah, yeah. And so a lot of times those colors that you see are related to the different energy centers called chakras in your body that need some clearing, that need some just a little love, you know? So you pay attention to the colors that you see, or, you know, some people see shapes, some people see pictures, some people hear things, and you just pay attention to all of that, because at the same time that you're seeing it, feeling it, hearing it, the energy, the Reiki practitioner is doing the same.
Beautiful. I actually had Reiki just yesterday, so this is fun. I have a client who does Reiki, and so she offered to do a session, and I was having, we're just going to dive into this real quick, because I was having this like strong sensation in the top of my stomach, and it had been so painful for a week. And it was so interesting. I woke up yesterday morning and I said, or 2 days ago, and I said, I think I need Reiki. Like there is something stuck here in my stomach. I go get on a call with her, a coaching call, and she said, you know what? I've been thinking about offering you a Reiki session. Would you like one? Universe just showed up for me and it cleared it out. I had Reiki with her yesterday. It's gone. It is gone. That pain is gone. So if you could, because you're a Reiki master and you're so beautiful at explaining this, can you explain to the audience what happened there when she helped me to remove that block? And it's related to my solar plexus, and the way that she described it was that I had a block there, and it was related to my belief in myself. So,
oh, interesting. And so the generic kind of example, because I haven't really felt that energy from you, but yeah, absolutely. So clearly in the top of your stomach is your solar plexus chakra, and that's your gut feeling. That is, you had stuck energy, like she was saying, about something you're feeling about yourself that you're not allowing or that you're holding on too tightly. And what happens is if you can think of how I described that tube that comes down through me, you have something very similar that goes down through you, and all your chakras are connected. So think about a clear energy channel and how if you are drinking water out of a straw, if you pinch off that straw, it's blocked and the water can't get through. Energy works in much the same way. And so if you're holding something in your solar plexus chakra and you're pinching off that energy, you've got a dam blockage right there, right? It's just like in the river, a beaver blocks the river with a dam. You've got the same thing. The energy can't flow. And so what happens to that energy? It turns into physical sensation when it becomes big enough. And that's when you go to an energy worker if you haven't learned how to self-clear and you have that blockage removed so the energy can start to flow again.
Thank you so much for describing that. I think that can be really helpful for people to understand. I think a lot of listeners here are like people are Reiki curious. That was one of the ones that I got the most responses when I was asking on Instagram and from the podcast. People like, okay, I'm really curious, but I'm a little nervous. And I know that I have a Catholic background and I believe you do too. Is that right? So these kinds of things can feel like woo woo and scary and, like we're nervous to try them. And I talk about it and talking about it more and more to normalize it because it is so important. And I would love for if you could share, you are an expert in clarity, helping women find clarity. You also, your podcast is about happiness. And you're so focused on energy as a Reiki master and as a former masseuse, right? Didn't you do massage for a long time?
I did, yes.
So you have all of this experience. And what is that wrapping up into you? Like, why is this so important that we understand and that the energetics of things?
Yeah, because again, everything is made up of energy. So our whole existence here on this earth is energetic. And when we are sleepwalking through life and just rotely going through life, the next thing, then the next thing, the expectation of what we're supposed to do next, we're not awake, right? We're just sleepwalking through life and following the program. And so it's so important to wake up. It's so important to, rediscover yourself, like I was saying earlier, and belong to yourself with a capital S, because we come from source. So whether you call that God, the universe, Buddha, whatever your belief is, we all come from it. Everything is energy. And so when you're able to tap into that, that's when you come alive. That's when you're no longer plugged into the system. That's when you're able to actually open your energetic eyes and see and look around at how beautiful life is, at how, yes, I get up every day and I go to work, but I don't just get up every day and go to work. I get up and I go to work and I help people and I interact with people and I create relationships and I'm of service and I love. And love is the ultimate, right? Whether it's romantic love or familial love or friendship love, doesn't matter. You love your pet. You love your neighbor. Love is love is love is love, right? Love is what makes it all worthwhile.
Mm-hmm. But sometimes we think it's the things, right?
We think it's the things
we think
because we're plugged into the system that says, get up, go to work, punch the clock, make the money, buy the things, get up, go to work, punch the clock because you bought too many things that you can't afford and now they're on credit. So you have to keep punching the clock. There's no good feeling in that. Where do you get the most good feeling? When do you feel the most alive? When you love and when you are loved.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness. It's so true. And yet so many of us are following. We're doing the sleepwalking. It's Groundhog Day, as one of our mentors likes to call it. We're just getting up
Right?
and we're just punching the clock. We're doing that. So if somebody's like, oh, yep, that's me. I'm sleepwalking through it. I'm
Yeah.
not really focusing on love. I'm not really tuned into the energy. I'm like plugged in the wrong place. I'm plugged into the outlet that doesn't have any flow. How does somebody maybe unplug from this system that we're all living in, that we're all bought into, and plug into the one that really is going to feed us, which you're saying is love, is energy. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
How do we do that?
The first thing that we do is look to people like you, Jen, who have this amazing podcast that, you shed light on what we need to be doing. You shed light on the things that do bring love, the things that do make us whole. And so I would say it's learning and connection with other people and opening your mind enough that, you're not walking around with the blinders on. It's saying, okay, wait, I just happened upon Jen's podcast and she was talking about this. And so your blinders are just open just the littlest bit, right? And then so is your mind. And you're like, well, if she's talking about that and that resonated, maybe I should listen a little closer. And then they listen to your next episode and then they learn. And then they maybe meet a guest, who resonates with them. And then they're like, I really liked what she had to say. And that felt good. Let me look at what else she's saying. And that, so it's just baby steps forward. Nothing happens overnight. It's baby steps forward of allowing yourself just to be open and to learn. And it's scary in the beginning because the ego says, you have to be safe. You have to be safe. Danger, danger, danger. Right. But just like you said, like, oh, I was raised Catholic. And so it feels, I'm nervous. And I talk about this all the time that when I went back to school for massage therapy, one of the classes was called complementary healing. And we started learning about energy work. And she started talking about Reiki. And I raised my hand very sheepishly and said, yeah, but I'm Catholic. So I don't know. She was like, Pascale, I'm Catholic. Put your hand down. Just listen. So and she was so matter of fact that it didn't feel scary anymore. And I think when we can walk with intention, it's all about the intention. She was so intentional and held that space of confidence to say, I'm Catholic too. It's fine. I believed it. Like I felt it. I was able to plug into her energy then. And so it's finding people that start to feed your soul and light you up. And then you plug into those people. And that's your new outlet.
Yeah, you're meeting other people. That's what's happening to us all the time. People are coming into our orbit because they're meeting at the frequency that we are rising to. Like we're all just constantly finding new people. So there's something that you said that I would love to go back to, because curiosity, what you were getting at is that it's just like, listen to this podcast, follow the breadcrumbs. It's these little tiny bits of curiosity. And something a friend said to me, I've said it on this podcast before, but I'm going to say it again because you're really like drilling it home. We think that curiosity is scary. Like we hear this, curiosity killed the cat. Don't be so curious. And when you ask questions, you can be really annoying. And so we learn as kids not to ask those questions and not to be curious. But what curiosity really is love. Curiosity is opening that door to learning something new. It is a loving act to be curious. It's loving to yourself. It's loving to other people, because being curious allows them to look at things differently. It is a true loving act to allow yourself to be curious. So I just wanted to share that, because what you say there, it's like we think that there needs to be step 1, step 2, step 3. And really it's not always like that. And curiosity is just such a beautiful door, even about these energetics, about all of this stuff, like just allowing yourself to follow those breadcrumbs of where you're leading. And it's probably leading you to some amazing people, some amazing energy that could be coming into your life.
Yeah, it's so true. And you're not always going to find the answers in a book, right? The answers, so many of the answers come from the experience of living in love, from the experience of gaining clarity. One of the things I always say is that story that I told in the beginning about how we had 3 babies in 4 years and I stayed at home and he went to work. And it literally was my rose tinted glasses life until it wasn't, when my glasses became so smudged of stress and exhaustion and being busy, right? But if we're able to clean the lens and be curious and how can this be different? And, oh, you seem happy. What are you doing? And, just like you said, following the breadcrumbs. I love that so much. It's not always in a book. Follow the breadcrumbs. Awakening and learning about yourself can sometimes feel like a roller coaster with an awful lot of loop-de-loops and around in a circles. But at the end of the day, when you can stop and turn around and be conscious of how far you've come, you might be surprised at just how far you've come.
And just how fun those loop-de-loops actually are. We can be having fun even during this, right?
Yeah. It's okay to be nervous. It's okay for our ego to try to protect us, because sometimes it's important that the ego protects us, right? But it's also okay to do it scared and just see what comes of it.
So true. What you said about the rose-covered glasses, it's almost like curiosity is lens cleaner. Like you said, it's like one of those little wipies. You can just kind of like start to wipe it off a little bit. And another little key point that I'm taking away from what you said, and that's so interesting, is that, what you lived, that was your love. Like it was so wonderful. But eventually you got to a point where it's like, okay, there's something new. And so often we'll like stay in it. And that's when we feel uncomfortable, when things get that way. It's simply a signal. It's a signal to us, but we don't see it that way. We just think something's wrong. And it's like, no, something's right. You're growing. It's time for something new. It's time for you and your husband to expand your relationship. Like people change, and you were allowed to change and grow together as you discovered yourself and found that clarity for yourself. Is that right?
That is 100% right. Everything you said just made me very excited and brought me right back to your Reiki session yesterday, because what my husband and I experienced in that time was the blockage that you experienced in your solar plexus chakra, right? And it's finding the help and finding the next one step that's going to help to clear the block so we can expand, right? Just like you just said, that was such an awakening thing that you just said. And then relating it back to your session yesterday. I mean, it's all full circle again. And that is the excitement of life when you allow it to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I thank you for bringing it back to that, because I think it's just such a helpful example, because I could have stayed with that stomach thing and I could just keep living my life with it being there and continuing to be stressed out, instead of, allowing the gift that came to me, asking for it yesterday morning. I was like, I think that there's something that I probably want to need. I got curious about what's going on. Some of the things I've been trying haven't been working, and that allowed a good thing to drop into my lap. And then I said yes to it. And now I feel like a whole different human today. It's like sometimes that my mind is even looking for it, like, oh, where's that feeling? Oh no, it's gone.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, we unkinked the hose,
We
the straw.
unkink the hose. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on. Another thing that I would love to ask you about. So I think we have a similar path, and there's a reason that I have kept with our podcasts. I've kept my podcast. It was called The Creative Commute, and now I've changed it to Untethered. And I kept those old episodes up because I think it's helpful for us to always be meeting people like where we're at, but also see where someone has come from. So often people are speaking from this like high point that they're at, and it's so hard, even for us as humans, to remember where we were. And I noticed that you've done that with your podcast too. You've kept old episodes, you changed the title. I'm curious if you're willing to share from your perspective. Why did you keep it that way? Why have you kept your unfolding your journey as your vibration has shifted and how you've moved into new directions? Why have you kept it there?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So, what happened is that a friend and I used to take walks and talk, and she was in the medical profession. And so she couldn't talk about the woo woo stuff, all the spirituality and all that. She wasn't comfortable talking about it outwardly, but she knew that I love all of it. And so we would take a walk. I live on Cape Cod, and we would take a walk around the island and have these amazing talks. And I said, one of these days we're going to have a podcast together. And she goes, "You think?" And I'm like, "I do." Fast forward a year later, we're still walking and talking. And she said, "This would be a great podcast episode." And I said, "I know." And she goes, "Maybe we should do a podcast." And I said, "You think?" Because I said that a year ago. And, we both laughed and we're like, "Let's do it. We don't know what we're doing. Let's just wing it, and we'll just call it an experiment." And that's actually the title of the first episode, is The Great Experiment. And we were sitting in her living room. You can hear her dogs barking. You can hear her husband and children come into the room. And it didn't matter, right? Because we were doing it. The name of the podcast was called Darling, So It Goes. The reason that was the name is a lot of the decisions we made pertaining to the podcast came organically through conversation or through meditation. And as we were talking about the name, my mom, who had already passed away several years before that, was a big lover of Elvis Presley. And as we're talking about it, suddenly in my mind, I hear my mom singing, "Darling, so it goes. Some things." I won't sing. I'm not a good singer.
That was beautiful.
But I shared that with her, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, what if it's darling, so it goes? Like, life happens, darling, so it goes." She was like, "I love it. That's our name." And that's how it became. And then as life happens, so it goes. She needed to step away for personal reasons. And I said, "I love the podcast so much. If it's okay with you, I want to keep going." And she's like, "Great." So I did. And it stayed that name for a while. And then as my coaching progressed and as my business started to evolve, my business is Women Finding Clarity. My podcast is the Happiness Workshop podcast. And it just started organically to be that the podcast started to become all about finding your happiness. And happiness is a workshop, right? We have to focus on it and learn and grow and expand. And so it organically just became, but it doesn't erase everything that came before. It's an evolution, right? And, like you said, some people just show up from their enlightened place and from their higher perspective, but they didn't just wake up in that enlightened place. It's all a journey. Social media shows us everyone's highlight reel. My podcasts frequently have my dog barking in them. That's life, right? It's authentic. And to leave the evolution in there is authenticity. It's not perfect. It's a workshop.
I love that so much. Thank you for sharing it. I think it's really helpful for us to see and hear that, because something I'm always encouraging people to do is try it. I've heard you say this too. Try it and see how it feels, because the greatest feedback you can get is how it feels to you. Is this fun? I see you're making the alignment motion.
Yes. How does it feel in your body?
Yes.
That's how I make every decision. How does it feel in my body? I tell my clients, okay, close your eyes. All right. Let's just make up an example. Let's say they want to know if they should buy a new car or get their other car fixed. And I mean, what an example, but okay, close your eyes. Say out loud, "I'm going to buy a new car." How does that feel in your body? Sit with it. Okay. Now Let's erase that. Close your eyes again. Say out loud, I'm going to get my old car fixed. How does that show up in your body? How does that feel? There's no right or wrong. It's all about what resonates with your true self with a capital S.
Beautiful. Yes, that was actually the very first embodiment practice that I ever did, was saying yes or no to a job offer that I was getting. Somebody gave me this advice, and it was the starter for me to embodiment work. So what you just offered there is so key. And I'll add one little thing to help people who are like, well, how do I like wipe that away? Do a couple of deep cleansing breaths just into your nose, out through the mouth, just cleanse, just feel that cleansing, and then ask the question, and then ask. Thank you so much for sharing this tool with people. It's so important and it's so good. Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
no, and I appreciate that you added on the going back to your breath just to clear it out, right? Take that deep cleansing breath. And as you're blowing it out, blow the whole question out, blow the answer out, see it blowing out in your breath and let it go. And now you're reset to ask the next question.
So powerful. It's so powerful. Thank you. So, and I know that you've got a program that you're offering. What is that, and how can people find it?
Ah, that's amazing. Thank you. Yes. So the next thing that I'm offering is June 7th, 8th, and 9th. I have a free 3-day challenge coming up. And then beyond that, I'm offering my 6-month program called Abundant Happiness. And to learn more about that, to sign up for the free program or the three-day challenge, you can just go right to my website, which is womenfindingclarity.com. And, you can subscribe to my email newsletter. You can find out information on all the programs and learn about me, what I have coming up, where I've been, all the things.
So good. Thank you so much. Is there anything that we have not talked about today that you think people really should know?
Yes, actually, yes. I just shared my program that's coming up is Abundant Happiness. And I think that as people are starting to delve into this idea of turning inward and how it's not actually selfish in a negative way, it's actually growth and expansion. Just knowing that there is so much more available to us in the universe than what we think right now. And it all goes back to turning inward. So the way to have everything out here is to just go back in here. And I feel like I can never stress it enough.
It's counterintuitive to the society that we're raised in. So it can take some work, and that work doesn't have to be hard. It can be fun. So you can be riding the loop-de-loops and having fun, but also be a little bit terrified. So I think the roller coaster is such a good analogy.
Such a good analogy. And, we are all, I hate to use the word programmed, but we're programmed into this culture, this life, this way of living. But if you've noticed over the last decade or so, there has started to be an energetic shift, right? And so historically, all of our systems, all of the way we live is through masculine energy. And this is not man bashing. I don't mean this in any way against men. Masculine energy shows up very differently than feminine energy. You and I both carry masculine and feminine energy. So masculine energy is all about getting it done, sticking with it, pushing through, all those things like rah, 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 right? Feminine energy is all about there's room for everyone here. Just come in. It's welcoming. It's soft. It's not about pushing or pulling. It's about allowing, right? And so I think the energetic shift that we're starting to feel is more of a shift toward this feminine energy. And a good thing I like to point out is, men have a midlife crisis, right? They start to panic. They start to feel like, oh, I'm losing my youth. I'm getting older. I don't have a lot of time left. that's masculine energy. Women in this time of midlife have an awakening. I've done the things. I've taken care of my family. I've raised my children. Now, who am I? And it's in this awakening energy that we become. And I think that's the energy that has started to shift in the universe, in the collective.
It's the coolest way anybody has ever described this.
Okay, now you're going to make me blush.
I love it because we can all relate to that. That's so true. And something that has bothered me, for lack of a better term, is that we have this shame around women becoming at this age. And I think that's starting to lift, which is just so beautiful. It's starting to lift that idea of shaming both midlife experiences. It's just what happens. Why are we shaming it? It's what's happening. And when we see, you've zoomed it out even further, like it's happening at the individual level, but this is also collectively happening where we're experiencing this shift. So that's so awesome. Thank you so much for diving into that. I have one last question for you, if I may.
Sure. I could stay all day. This is amazing.
I ask this question of every single person who comes on the podcast, and I can't wait to hear what you say. Where do you see the magic in the world?
Ooh, that is a fantastic question. I see the magic in the world everywhere I look. I see the magic through the eyes of my children. They're all, 20, 19, and almost 17. I saw it through their eyes when they were little, and I see it through their eyes now, this anything is possible energy, right? I see the magic when I go sit at the ocean and see the waves. I see the magic when I'm walking on the beach and find a piece of perfect sea glass or a perfect scallop shell that hasn't been broken. I see the magic in the clouds because I see things in the clouds all the time, right? I see the magic in rocks that are shaped like a heart. I see the magic. I see the magic in you. I see the magic in your smile, in your hat. I see the magic because it's part of you, right? And so if you're just, the more you allow yourself to be open to seeing the magic, the more magic you're going to see.
Oh, so beautiful. That really wraps up just your message in general, all into one little sentence there at the end. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing all of your wisdom with us. Once more, where can people find you and connect with you?
For sure. The best place to find me and all things happy are womenfindingclarity.com.
Beautiful. Thanks again for coming on.
This has been my pleasure. I appreciate you so very much.
Huge thanks to Pascale for coming on the podcast and sharing her wisdom with us. Some of the ways I told her when we hopped off the call, some of the ways that she frames things, I think are so helpful. And that's why I love interviewing people on this podcast, because everybody talks about these things so differently, has a unique perspective, and that creates space for you to have your unique perspective too. We're all so needed because the way that someone describes something could really connect with you. The way that somebody else describes it might not connect with you at all. We're all tuning to different frequencies. And maybe today, the way that she described things really connected with you. A couple of the things that she said that super connected with me is this idea that we live our lives, especially as women, we live them in a place of belonging to others. And we come to this point on our path, like she talked about at the end, this point often in our late 30s, 40s, 50s, where we're ready to belong to ourselves, where we're ready to become, where we're ready to open to the next thing and really come in and trust our inner wisdom. And that's what we are called to do. It's what the whole world is being called, to come back to that feminine and to open and to listen to ourselves and to get in alignment. So that was one of the big things that she said. Another thing is that, we just really need to wake up. So many of us are sleepwalking. We're plugged into the outlet that has no juice. It's time to unplug and go get curious and find the things that you want to plug into. What are the things that light you up? What is the thing that's going to put a surge of power into you? Those are those things, those beautiful things that are aligned to you and are going to help you energize the world. I hope you got something so spectacular out of this episode that is going to help you on your happiness journey and to help you shine your beautiful, magical light out there into the world. If you enjoyed this episode, if you found something really fabulous out of it for yourself or others, I encourage you to share it. Share it with a friend, share it on social media, wherever it is that you can share it to help more people find their selfish happiness. See you next time.